My name is Daniel Reyes. I am 29 years old, and I am a certified public accountant at a mid-sized firm in Atlanta. I say that not to impress anyone, but because the job matters to the story. Numbers, records, paper trails. I spend my life making sure everything is documented and accounted for. Which is probably why, when my own stepfather decided to steal the one thing I had spent 4 years building, I already knew exactly how to take it back. I was 24 when I first registered my business. Nothing flashy. A small online resale company I had built from scratch during the nights and weekends of my last year of college. I sourced vintage electronics, refurbished them at a workbench in my apartment, and sold them through my own website and a few established platforms. By the time I graduated, the business was making enough that I delayed full-time employment for another year just to see how far I could take it. It had a name, a registered LLC, a tax ID, a business bank account, a logo I had paid a designer to create, and a reputation I had built through 4 years of 5-star reviews and reliable shipping. It was mine in every legal and moral sense of the word. I had never asked anyone for a dime to build it. My mother had married Marcus when I was 15. He came into our lives with a used car lot mentality and a personality built entirely around making sure people knew he was the most important person in any room. He was not violent. He was not dramatic. He was the slow, grinding kind of difficult, the kind who chips away at your confidence over years until you start to believe the diminished version of yourself he has been quietly constructing. He called my business a hobby for 2 full years. He told my mother I was wasting my education playing with old computers. He told relatives at holiday dinners that I was afraid of real work. And my mother, who loved me in the distant, distracted way some parents do, never once pushed back. When I was 26, I had to go out of town for 6 weeks. A contract accounting position in another state that paid well enough to justify the distance. I was not worried about my business because I had automated most of it and left clear instructions with the one part-time assistant I trusted. Before I left, I made a mistake I have replayed in my mind 100 times since. My mother called and said she was worried about the packages sitting outside my apartment if deliveries came. She asked for a spare key so she could collect anything important. I gave it to her without much thought because she was my mother, and I was leaving in 2 days, and it seemed like a reasonable request. I gave her access to my apartment. I did not give her access to my business, my accounts, my passwords, my client files, my equipment, or any part of the life I had built inside that apartment. But I learned, 6 weeks later, that she had given Marcus a copy of that key within 48 hours of receiving it. I came back to an apartment that looked undisturbed at first. Furniture in place, kitchen tidy, nothing obviously wrong. Then I sat down at my workbench and noticed the inventory log was off. 3 bins of refurbished units were missing. When I opened my laptop and pulled up my business accounts, I found something that made my stomach drop in a way I had not felt since a car accident at 19. Someone had accessed my seller accounts. Not hacked them. Logged into them with my credentials. Changed the payout bank account to one I did not recognize. Rerouted 8 weeks of incoming revenue. Canceled 2 pending supplier orders I had placed before leaving. And then, most carefully of all, submitted a change of business name filing with the state using a form that required my LLC information and a forged signature. I sat at that workbench for almost 20 minutes without moving. Not because I was in shock. Because I was reading every detail carefully and trying to understand the full scope of what I was looking at before I said a single word to anyone. By the time I stood up, I already knew it was Marcus. I did not know the how yet, but I knew the who the moment I saw that the change of business name had been submitted from an IP address registered to his car dealership. I did not call my mother first. I called my attorney. His name was Paul Givens, and I had used him once before for a contract dispute with a supplier. He was the kind of attorney who listened without interrupting and asked exactly the right questions at the end. When I finished walking him through what I had found, he was quiet for a moment and then said, "Before you do anything else, do not confront them. Document everything tonight and bring it to me tomorrow morning." I did exactly that. I spent the night pulling records, screenshots, login timestamps, IP logs, bank transfer receipts, the state filing, and every email or message I could find that connected the activity to Marcus. By 2 in the morning, I had a folder thick enough to make anyone uncomfortable. What I discovered in the following days was uglier than I had initially understood. Marcus had not just stolen revenue. He had been slowly trying to transfer the business identity. The name change filing was step 1. He had already begun approaching my suppliers under the new name, claiming he was expanding the operation under new management. He had told at least 2 of my regular buyers that the original owner had decided to close down and he was continuing the service under new branding. He had printed business cards. He had registered a new email domain. He had, in the methodical way of someone who thinks they are smarter than they are, tried to wear my business like a coat he could button up and walk away in. What he did not account for was the paper trail that 4 years of legitimate business operations leave behind. Tax filings, registered agent records, platform seller histories, original incorporation documents, client invoices, the designer's contract for my logo, supplier agreements with my name and signature going back to year 1. Every document pointed to me. Every record contradicted him. The forged signature on the state filing was the most dangerous part of what he had done, and also the most damning, because forgery on a state business document is not a civil matter. It is a crime. My mother called while I was in Paul's office the second morning. I let it go to voicemail. She called again that afternoon. I listened to the message in my car. Her voice was soft and careful in the way it always got when she already knew something was wrong and was hoping I had not found out yet. She said she had heard I was back in town and wanted to have dinner. She said Marcus was looking forward to catching up. She said she hoped my trip had gone well. She said nothing about my business, my accounts, or the 6 weeks her husband had spent trying to dismantle everything I owned. I saved the voicemail, noted the date and time, and added it to my folder. Paul filed a police report on my behalf. He also sent a cease and desist to Marcus directly, which I am told Marcus opened, read, and then called my mother crying, saying I was trying to destroy the family over a misunderstanding. I heard about this secondhand from my younger stepbrother, who texted me that night to say things were bad at home, and he hoped we could talk. I told him I appreciated him reaching out and that I would contact him when I could. Then I turned my phone face down and went to sleep, because I had learned by then that reacting to the performance was how they wanted me to spend my energy. I needed that energy for something else. The criminal complaint moved slowly, the way these things do. But the civil case moved with a precision that I think surprised Marcus, because people like him expect grief to be messy and exhausting. They expect you to cry, to beg, to threaten loudly and follow through on nothing. What they do not expect is a 29-year-old with 4 years of business records, a good attorney, an IP log from a car dealership, and the patience of someone who has been underestimated his entire life. During this period, my mother finally reached me directly. We met at a diner near her house, just the 2 of us, and she sat across from me with the same expression she had worn my whole childhood when she needed me to not make things difficult. She said Marcus had only been trying to help. She said my business had been sitting idle while I was away, and he had been worried about the accounts going dormant. She said he had made some poor decisions, but his intentions were good. I asked her if forging my signature on a state document was a poor decision or a crime. She looked at the table. Then she said she hoped we could find a way through this without things getting worse. I asked her what worse meant. She said, court, police, his record. I told her his record was already part of the process and that I had not started it. He had. She pressed her lips together and said she did not want to lose either of us. I told her that was a feeling she should have protected before she handed him a copy of my key. She did not have an answer for that. She ordered coffee she never drank and left 20 minutes later. I sat there for a while after she was gone, not out of sadness, but because I needed a few minutes to make sure I was still thinking clearly before the next step. The civil judgment came 14 months after I filed. Marcus owed me for stolen revenue, stolen inventory, costs related to repairing my business accounts and reputation with suppliers, legal fees, and damages related to the attempted identity transfer of my LLC. The total was just over $38,000. He did not pay voluntarily. He never intended to. But I had expected that, and Paul had already prepared enforcement steps. His dealership accounts were levied. His personal accounts were flagged. 2 of his business licenses required renewal around that time, and the pending judgment created complications he had not anticipated. The criminal side took longer, but the forgery charge eventually moved forward. He was not sentenced to prison. He received probation, fines, and a criminal record that followed him into every future business application, license renewal, and background check. For a man whose entire identity was built on the image of a successful businessman, a fraud conviction was not nothing. It was the kind of thing that does not wash off. My mother called me the night his sentencing was announced. She said she did not blame me for what I had done legally, but she needed me to know that the man she loved was not who the court had made him look like. I told her I understood she believed that. I also told her the court had not invented a narrative. They had reviewed evidence and followed it where it led. She started crying and said she felt like she was losing her family. I told her I had felt that way for 14 months while fighting to recover something that should never have been touched. She said that was not fair. I said she was right. None of it had been. We have not spoken much since then. There is no dramatic estrangement, no final door slammed, no ultimatum delivered. There is just distance, the quiet kind that grows when someone repeatedly chooses the person who hurt you over the truth of what happened. I do not hate her. I understand that she is a woman who built her security around a man, and threatening that man felt to her like threatening the ground beneath her feet. I understand it, and I do not excuse it, and I have made peace with the fact that those 2 things can be true at the same time. My business survived. Not without damage, but it survived. I spent months repairing supplier relationships, explaining the disruption to long-term buyers, and rebuilding the account history that had been scrambled. 2 clients never came back. The rest did, some with loyalty that felt almost like an apology from the universe. I added 2 new product lines last year. I hired a second part-time employee. The workbench in my apartment has been replaced by a small leased workspace 2 blocks from my accounting firm, where I work my day job in the mornings and run my own business in the afternoons like a man who has decided that building 2 things is better than depending entirely on one. My stepbrother still texts occasionally. He is young and caught between 2 versions of what happened, the one his father tells and the one the court documents show. I am patient with him because he did not do anything wrong and because I remember being young and confused in a house where the adults set the terms of reality. When he is ready to ask real questions, I will answer them honestly. I still have the original LLC filing from 4 years ago in a folder on my desk. The date on it, the registered name, my signature at the bottom. Not because I need the reminder anymore, but because it was the first document I ever signed as a business owner, and no one gets to take that from me. What I know now that I did not know at 24 is that people who try to steal what you have built are counting on 2 things: your attachment to peace and your reluctance to cause discomfort. They believe that love or family or the fear of being seen as difficult will stop you from protecting yourself. They are wrong. And the most effective thing you can ever do when someone tries to erase your work, your name, or your future is to stop performing calm and start building a case. I did not destroy Marcus. He destroyed himself, 1 forged signature at a time. I just made sure the paper trail was long enough that no one could pretend they had not seen it.